Jack Monroe trudged up the stairs to his fifth-floor apartment, cursing the broken elevator for the third time that week. His shoulders ached from hunching over his desk at the astronomy lab, and his mind buzzed with calculations that refused to align. The mysterious radio signals from the Andromeda Galaxy had kept him working late again, though his colleagues had long given up and gone home. He fumbled with his keys, nearly dropping them twice, before finally getting the door open. The apartment was dark, just as he'd left it that morning, but something felt different. A faint, sweet scent, like nothing he'd ever encountered, hung in the air. Jack froze in the doorway, his tired brain suddenly alert. "Hello, Jack," came a soft, melodic voice from the darkness of his living room. Jack's hand fumbled for the light switch, heart hammering against his ribs. The lights flickered on to reveal a woman sitting comfortably in his reading chair by the window. But she wasn't just any woman. Her skin was a soft lavender purple that seemed to shimmer slightly in the lamplight. Her eyes were large and almond-shaped, an iridescent silver that caught the light like prisms. Long, flowing hair, the color of midnight, cascaded over her shoulders. And she wore what appeared to be a form-fitting silver jumpsuit that accentuated her slender but curvy figure. What are you?" Jack stammered, his back pressed against the door. Knowledge beyond explanation, the purple-skinned woman smiled, revealing perfect teeth that seemed just slightly too white. "My name is Lyra," she said, crossing one leg over the other with graceful ease. "And you're Jack Monroe, lead researcher at the Stellar Communications Department of Northwell University." Jack swallowed hard. "How do you know that? How did you get in here?" Lyra stood up, her movements fluid and precise. She was tall, perhaps 5'9", and moved with an otherworldly grace as she approached him. "Your security system is quite primitive," she said, not unkindly. "As for how I know about you, I know many things. Your favorite food is pad thai with extra lime. You sleep on your left side. You've been tracking anomalous radio signals from the Andromeda Galaxy for the past 3 months. Jack felt his mouth go dry. The radio signal research was classified. Not even his family knew what he was working on. "A proposition from the stars. You should sit down," Lyra suggested, gesturing to his couch. "You've had a long day. The signal pattern you discovered today was Fibonacci sequence, wasn't it?" Not a coincidence. Jack found himself obeying, sinking into his couch as his knees went weak. "What are you?" he asked again. Lyra smiled that mysterious smile. "I think you already know, Jack. You've been searching the stars for someone like me your entire career. You're right. You're..." Jack couldn't bring himself to say it out loud. "Not from your world," she confirmed, sitting beside him. Her scent was stronger now, something like jasmine and ozone. "And I'm here because of you, specifically." The message in the stars. Jack ran a hand through his disheveled brown hair. "This can't be happening. I must have fallen asleep at my desk again." Lyra reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was warmer than human skin should be in. The contact sent a tingling sensation up his arm. "I assure you this is very real," she said. "The signals you've been receiving, they were meant for you. A cosmic breadcrumb trail. I needed someone intelligent enough to notice the pattern, someone persistent enough to keep looking when others gave up." Jack stared at her hand on his. "Why me?" Lyra's silver eyes seemed to look through him rather than at him. "Because you're special, Jack. Your mind works differently. You see patterns others miss. And because my people need your help. A decision at midnight. My help." Jack laughed nervously. "What could I possibly do for 4 aliens?" "My species is called the Astrali," Lyra said, her expression growing serious. "And we are facing extinction. The same fate may await Earth if we don't act soon." Outside, the night had deepened. Jack's clock showed it was nearly midnight. His ordinary life as a researcher seemed suddenly distant, like a half-remembered dream. "I know this is overwhelming," Lyra said, her voice gentler now, "but time is short. Others are coming, ones who won't ask nicely for your cooperation." Jack looked from her lavender hand still resting on his to her otherworldly face. Everything in his scientific training told him this couldn't be real, yet here she was. "What do you need me to do?" he finally asked. Lyra's smile returned, brilliant and somehow both alien and familiar. First, we need to leave. Pack only what you need. Your life as you knew it ended the moment you opened that door. The night air was cool against Jack's face as he and Lyra hurried through the back alley behind his apartment building. He'd packed hastily laptop, phone, a change of clothes, and his research notes all stuffed into his old backpack. Lyra moved silently beside him, her purple skin less noticeable in the darkness, though she'd donned a hooded jacket from his closet for additional cover. "My car's in the garage," Jack whispered, still not entirely convinced he wasn't having some elaborate dream. Lyra shook her head. "They'll be tracking all registered vehicles. We need alternative transportation." Who exactly is after us?" Jack asked, following her. As she turned confidently down another alley he'd never explored despite living in the building for 3 years. "Your government has a division that monitors extraterrestrial communications," she explained, her silver eyes scanning the shadows. "They detected my arrival 2 days ago and have been searching. They're very interested in what I know and now, but you know." At the end of the alley, a sleek motorcycle waited, unlike any model Jack had ever seen. Its surface seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, and it made no sound when Lyra touched it. "This is yours?" Jack asked incredulously. "It is now," she replied with a hint of mischief. "Climb on." Revelations at dawn, they rode through the night. The mysterious motorcycle gliding silently through sleeping towns and along empty highways. Jack clung to Lyra's waist, feeling the unusual warmth of her body against his chest. By the time pink light began to streak the eastern sky, they had traveled far from the city, deep into the forested mountains. Lyra finally stopped at a small, abandoned ranger station. The wooden structure was weathered but intact, hidden among towering pine trees. "We'll be safe here for a while," she said, dismounting gracefully. Inside, dust covered everything, but the structure was sound. Jack collapsed onto an old chair, exhaustion finally catching up to him. "I think it's time you explained everything," he said, watching as Lyra moved around the space, touching surfaces and examining the building with curious interest. She turned to him, the dawn light filtering through dirty windows, casting golden highlights on her purple skin. "My people, the Astrali, have been observing Earth for centuries. We're scientists, explorers. We've watched your civilization develop, careful never to interfere. Until now," Jack noted. "Until now," she agreed, "because something has changed. The signals you've been studying aren't just coming from Andromeda there. Warnings." The cosmic threat Lyra sat across from Jack, her eyes serious. "There's another species, we call them the Void. They consume worlds, Jack, entire civilizations. They've already destroyed my homeworld. And Earth is next on their path." Jack stared at her, trying to process this information. "And your people sent you to warn us?" A shadow crossed Lyra's face. "I'm the last of my kind as far as I know. I escaped as my world fell. The signals you detected were my attempts to find someone who could help me save your planet from the same fate. But what can I do? I'm just an astronomer." "You're much more than that," Lyra said, leaning forward to take his hands in hers. The contact sent that same pleasant tingling through his body. "Your research on quantum communication is decades ahead of others in your field. With your knowledge and my technology, we might be able to create a shield, a barrier the Void cannot penetrate." Jack's mind raced through the implications. "The equations I've been working on? They were never quite right. But if what you're saying about interdimensional frequencies is true, they could be the key to saving Earth," Lyra finished, a smile lighting her alien features. Jack studied her face, searching for any sign of deception, but finding only earnestness and something else. Vulnerability that seemed startlingly human. "Why did you really choose me?" he asked softly. Lyra's silver eyes met his. "Because when I observed you through the years, I saw someone who cared deeply, who looked at the stars, not with fear of the unknown, but with hope and wonder. Those qualities are rare in any species." Jack Monroe. Her words warmed something inside him, and for a moment all the strangeness of their situation faded away. Then, without warning, Lyra stiffened, her head turning toward the window. "They've found us," she whispered. The rumble of approaching vehicles shattered the morning quiet. Jack peered through the grimy window to see 3 black SUVs winding up the forest road, still distant, but closing fast. "How did they find us so quickly?" he asked, his heart racing. Lyra was already gathering their few belongings. "Your phone. They're tracking the signal." Jack pulled out his phone and stared at it. "But I turned it off." "Off isn't the same as disconnected," Lyra explained, taking the device from him and swiftly removing the battery. "Too late now. We need to move quickly." They slipped out the back door of the ranger station just as the first vehicle reached the clearing. Jack caught a glimpse of men in dark suits emerging, their movements precise and coordinated. "This way," Lyra whispered, leading him into the dense forest. Her movements were sure-footed even on the uneven terrain. While Jack stumbled over roots and rocks as they fled deeper into the wilderness, the revelation they ran for what felt like hours. The sounds of pursuit, sometimes fading, sometimes growing alarmingly close. When they finally stopped in a small rocky hollow beside a stream, Jack collapsed, gasping for breath. "Who are these people?" he panted. "Division 7, Lyra replied, barely winded. "Your government's extraterrestrial containment unit. They've been aware of cosmic threats for decades, but chose secrecy over preparation. They want my technology, and they'll do anything to get it." Jack splashed cold stream water on his face. "And what happens if they catch you?" Lyra's expression darkened. "Dissection. Experimentation. They would learn nothing useful in time to stop the void. That wouldn't stop them from trying." A chill ran through Jack that had nothing to do with the cool forest air. The thought of Lyra, on some sterile table, being cut apart by government scientists, made him feel physically ill. "I won't let that happen," he said with sudden fierceness that surprised even himself. Lyra looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Then, slowly, she reached up and touched his face. Her fingertips were soft against his stubbled jaw. "You're an unusual human. Jack Monroe," she said quietly. A moment of connection, something changed between them in that moment, a shift in the air. In the space that separated them, Jack found himself drawn to her, despite everything rational telling him how impossible this attraction was. "Lyra," he began, not sure what he wanted to say. She moved closer, her silver eyes searching his. "Yes," a twig snapped in the distance, breaking the spell. They both froze, listening intently. The sounds of pursuit had returned. "We need to keep moving," Lyra whispered. Pulling away from him, Jack nodded, trying to reorient himself. "Where are we going?" "There's an old observatory on the mountain peak," Lyra said, pointing upward through the trees. "I can use its equipment to contact the Resistance Network humans who know about the void and are preparing defenses." "There are others who know about this?" "A few scattered across your planet. Scientists, military personnel who couldn't stay silent about what they discovered." Lyra's expression grew serious. "If we reach them, we have a chance. If Division 7 catches us first..." She didn't need to finish the thought. The chase intensifies. They made their way upward, the terrain growing steeper and more challenging. Jack's muscles screamed in protest, unused to such exertion, but the sounds of pursuit kept him moving. Lyra helped him where she could, her strength surprising for her slender frame. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy. When they finally stopped to rest on a rocky outcrop, below they could see the forest stretching for miles, and in the distance, the glint of vehicles on mountain roads. "They're not giving up," Jack observed grimly. Lyra shook her head. "They won't. Not until they have what they want." A sudden worry sound above them made them both look up. A black helicopter appeared over the treetops, hovering ominously. "Run," Lyra shouted, grabbing Jack's hand. They sprinted through the underbrush as the helicopter swooped lower. A spotlight beam cut through the trees, searching for them. Jack's foot caught on a root and he stumbled, nearly falling. Lyra's strong grip kept him upright as they continued their desperate flight. The sound of the helicopter was joined by voices and crashing. Footsteps, ground agents closing in from multiple directions. We're surrounded. Jack gasped as they reached a small clearing. Lyra's silver eyes darted around, assessing their options. Then she turned to Jack, her expression resolute. "There's something I haven't told you," she said urgently. "Something about why I really chose you?" Before she could continue, a blinding light engulfed them as the helicopter's spotlight found its target. The helicopter's spotlight pinned them in the clearing like insects under glass. Jack shielded his eyes against the glare, his heart pounding as dark figures emerged from the trees. Men in tactical gear with weapons trained on them closed in from all sides. "Don't move," shouted a commanding voice. "Hands where we can see them." Jack slowly raised his hands, looking desperately at Lyra. Her purple skin glowed eerily in the harsh light, her silver eyes reflecting the beam like mirrors. But instead of fear, her face showed only determination. "Jack," she whispered, not raising her hands. "Do you trust me?" He hesitated only a moment. Yes. In one fluid motion, Lyra reached for a small device on her wrist that Jack hadn't noticed before. Her fingers danced across its surface, and suddenly the world around them seemed to shimmer and distort. Fire. Someone shouted, but the bullets never reached them. A translucent dome of energy had formed around Jack and Lyra, rippling like water where the bullet struck. "Close your eyes," Lyra commanded. And Jack obeyed just as a blinding flash erupted from her device. When he opened his eyes again, the clearing was in chaos. The agents were stumbling about, temporarily blinded, and the helicopter was veering erratically overhead. Lyra grabbed his hand. "Now we run." Revelations in darkness, they ran through the night, the forest growing thicker and wilder as they ascended the mountain. Jack's lungs burned, but fear and adrenaline kept him moving. Lyra seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, her purple skin emitting a subtle luminescence that helped guide their way. Near midnight, they reached a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. The roar of falling water would mask their voices, and the moisture in the air would confuse any thermal imaging technology their pursuers might be using. "What was that back there?" Jack asked once they'd caught their breath. "That shield. ... Lyra sat cross-legged on the cave floor, her back against the cool stone wall. "Australi technology. My people developed energy manipulation centuries ago, and they're still after us." "Yes, but we've bought ourselves some time." She looked at him intently. "There's something I need to tell you, Jack. Something I should have explained from the beginning." Jack sat opposite her, water dripping from his soaked clothes. "I'm listening." The truth unveiled. "I told you I chose you because of your research." "And that's partly true," Lyra began, her voice echoing slightly in the cave. "But it's not the whole truth." She touched her wrist device again, and a holographic image appeared between them, a double helix structure that Jack recognized as DNA. Though parts of it seemed unusual, it's configured in ways he'd never seen in human genetics. "This is Australi DNA," she explained. "And this ... double quotes." She swiped her finger, and another DNA structure appeared alongside it. "This is yours, Jack." He stared at the two rotating images, his scientific mind immediately spotting similarities that shouldn't exist between species from different planets. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Not impossible," Lyra said softly. "Just improbable. Jack, thousands of years ago, a small group of Australi visited Earth. Some remained, integrated, had children with humans." Jack's mind raced with the implications. "You're saying I have alien ancestors?" "I'm saying you have Australi genes. Dormant, mostly, but there. It's why you've always felt different. Why your mind can see patterns others miss. Why you're drawn to the stars." She reached out and touched his hand. "It's why I was able to find you through the signals. Your DNA resonates with mine on a quantum level." Jack pulled his hand away, standing up abruptly. "So I'm what, some kind of hybrid experiment? Is that all I am to you? A genetic curiosity?" "The price of connection, no," Lyra said firmly, rising to face him. "You're the key, Jack. The void destroys worlds by disrupting the molecular bonds of all matter. But beings with our specific genetic makeup can create a resonance field that counteracts this disruption. Together, we might be able to shield your entire planet. And you couldn't have told me this before? Jack demanded, anger and confusion warring within him. Would you have believed me? Lyra asked. Would you have come with me if I'd told you that you're part alien? That the fate of your world might depend on genetic markers you never knew you carried? Jack had no answer for that. He turned away, staring out at the silver of night sky visible through the waterfall. There's more, Lyra said quietly. The connection between us, it's not just genetic. It's deeper than that. Something in her tone made Jack turn back to her. She stepped closer, the faint glow of her skin illuminating the small space between them. Among my people, finding someone with complementary quantum resonance is rare, sacred. Her voice had dropped to a whisper. In your terms, it would be like ... soulmates, Jack finished, the word falling from his lips before he could stop it. Lyra nodded. The pull you feel toward me, the way your skin tingles when I touch you, it's the resonance recognizing itself in another, as if to demonstrate. She reached up and placed her palm against his cheek. The sensation that rushed through him was electric, intense, like nothing he'd ever experienced with another person. Tomorrow we reach the observatory, she said, her silver eyes locked with his, and we either save your world or we watch it fall. But tonight, ... double quotes Jack knew he should resist, should take time to process everything she'd told him. But as her lips met his, all doubts faded away. In that moment, human and astrali, they were simply two beings finding connection in a universe of chaos. Morning light filtered through the waterfall, casting rainbow prisms across the cave walls. Jack woke with Lyra, nestled against him, her purple skin warm against his. For a moment he simply watched her sleep, marveling at how quickly his world had changed. 3 days ago, he'd been a lonely astronomer, tracking mysterious signals. Now he was a fugitive with alien DNA, holding a woman from the stars. Lyra's eyes fluttered open, silver irises focusing immediately on his face. You're thinking too loudly, she murmured. Sorry, he smiled. Just processing ... everything. She sat up, stretching gracefully. The observatory is only a few hours' climb from here. Once we reach it, I can access the equipment to amplify our resonance field. And Division 7. Still searching, but the waterfall has masked our presence. She touched her wrist device. No movement within a mile radius. They gathered their few belongings and slipped out from behind the waterfall.
Ow.
Continuing their ascent through the thinning forest, as they climbed higher, Jack noticed the trees giving way to rocky terrain, the air growing colder and thinner. There, Lyra pointed to a dome-shaped structure perched near the mountain's peak. The old McKinley Observatory, abandoned 20 years ago when they built the new facility in the valley. The final climb. The last stretch was the most difficult. The path grew steep and treacherous, loose rocks sliding underfoot. Jack's muscles ached from days of running and climbing, but determination kept him moving forward. Lyra moved with natural grace, occasionally reaching back to help him over particularly difficult sections. They were halfway up the final slope when the sound of helicopter rotors echoed through the thin mountain air. They've found us, Jack gasped, looking up to see not one, but 3 black helicopters approaching from different directions. We're too close to give up now, Lyra said, gripping his hand tightly. Run. They scrambled up the rocky incline as the helicopters converged on their position. No words were needed between them now. Both knew what capture would mean. Death for Lyra, imprisonment for Jack, and doom for the planet when the void arrived. The first helicopter swooped low, kicking up dust and pebbles. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker. This is Division 7. You are surrounded. Surrender the alien immediately. Jack and Lyra reached the observatory door-old metal and thankfully unlocked. They tumbled inside, slamming it shut behind them, just as the sound of boots hitting the ground outside reached their ears. The heart of the observatory, the interior, was dusty and dim, abandoned equipment covered in protective tarps. At the center stood the massive telescope, its aged metal structure pointing toward a circular opening in the dome above. "We need to work quickly," Lyra said, moving toward the control panels. "They'll breach the door soon." She began removing panels, exposing circuitry that she modified with components from her own devices. Jack, understanding what she needed, helped reroute power to the long-dormant systems. "The resonance amplifier needs to connect directly to the telescope's focusing array," she explained. "When the void begins its approach, it creates spatial distortions that can be detected through gravitational lensing." Outside, you could hear the agents attempting to break through the reinforced door. Metal groaned under repeated impacts. "It won't hold much longer," Jack observed grimly. Lyra connected the final components, and the old observatory hummed to life, lights flickering on consoles that hadn't been used in decades. "Almost there," she murmured, fingers flying across the controls. The door burst open with a crash of metal, and armed agents poured in, weapons raised. "Step away from the equipment," shouted a tall man in a black suit who seemed to be in charge. "Hands up now." The choice Jack stood protectively in front of Lyra. "You don't understand what's happening," he said. "There's something coming, something that will destroy our planet if we don't stop it." "The only threat here is the alien behind you," the agent replied coldly. "Step aside, Dr. Monroe. We know what she is." "What she's capable of? You know nothing," Lyra said, continuing to work behind Jack. "Your sensors have already detected the void's approach, haven't they? The gravitational anomalies. The radiation spikes? You've been monitoring them for months, but you have no idea what they mean." A flicker of uncertainty crossed the agent's face before his professional mask returned. "Last warning. Step away from the equipment." Jack felt Lyra's hand on his shoulder. "It's ready," she whispered, "but I need your help to activate it. Our resonance together is the key." He turned to look at her, understanding what she was asking. The connection between them, the genetic link, the quantum resonance, it was all leading to this moment. "What do I do?" he asked. "Take my hands," she said, "and whatever happens, don't let go." As weapons were raised and orders shouted, Jack grasped Lyra's hands in his. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Energy coursed between them, visible as luminous currents flowing from Lyra's purple skin to Jack's and back again. The telescope above them began to rotate, aligning itself with a point in space visible through the dome's opening. "Fire," the agent commanded, but when the bullets reached the energy field surrounding Jack and Lyra, they simply disintegrated. Cosmic convergence, the energy field expanded, engulfing the entire observatory. Through their connected hands, Jack could feel Lyra's consciousness merging with his own thoughts, memories, emotions flowing between them like water. "Look up." Lyra's voice echoed in his mind. Jack raised his eyes to the opening in the dome. The daylight sky had darkened as if an eclipse were occurring, but instead of the moon crossing the sun, a distortion was visible, a rippling, darkening patch of space that seemed to devour light itself. "The void," Lyra's thoughts explained. "It's beginning." Around them, the agents had fallen back, watching in confusion and fear as the energy field continued to grow. The telescope was now fully aligned with the distortion, channeling their combined resonance outward like a beacon. Jack could feel the strain on Lyra's body and mind. "This is hurting you," he realized. "It's necessary," her thoughts replied. One last push, ... With a surge of will, Lyra directed their combined energy through the telescope. A beam of blinding light shot upward, striking the dark distortion in the sky. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like ripples spreading across a pond, waves of energy began to emanate from the point of impact. The dark patch writhed and contracted, as if in pain. Jack could feel Lyra's life force pouring into the beam, her physical form beginning to flicker and fade in his grasp. "Lyra, stop," he cried out, both aloud and in their shared consciousness. "You're dying." Beyond the stars, this was always the price, her thoughts whispered to him. One life to save billions. No, Jack refused. There has to be another way, in their merged consciousness. He searched desperately through the knowledge Lyra had shared with him, astrology science, the quantum resonance, the nature of their connection, and there, in the complex equations and spiritual bonds of her people, he found something she had overlooked. The resonance doesn't need to be projected, he realized. It needs to be diffused, spread throughout Earth's atmosphere to create a shield. With newfound understanding, Jack adjusted their energy flow. Instead of channeling it all into the beam, he began to release it in expanding waves. It's like ripples spreading from a stone thrown in water. The effect was immediate. The strain on Lyra lessened, her form solidifying again in his grasp. Above them, the beam widened, becoming a dome of energy that spread across the sky. The dark distortion seemed to recoil, withdrawing from the expanding shield. Within minutes, the sky had returned to its normal blue, though now with a subtle iridescence visible only if one knew to look for it. Exhausted, Jack and Lyra collapsed to the floor, their hands still clasped tightly together. The energy field around them faded, leaving them vulnerable once more to the agents who had witnessed everything. The lead agent stepped forward cautiously, his weapon lowered. He looked from Jack to Lyra, then to the sky visible through the dome, understanding dawning on his face. "What just happened?" he asked, his authoritative tone replaced by genuine awe. Jack helped Lyra to her feet, supporting her weakened form. "We just saved your world," he said simply. "And now we're leaving." "I can't let you do that," the agent replied, though without conviction. Lyra stepped forward. "You've seen what we can do. What's out there? Your world is safe for now. But the shield will need maintenance. Strengthening. You need us more than we need you." The agent hesitated, then slowly holstered his weapon. "Go," he said finally. "But we'll be watching." A new dawn as the sun set behind the mountains. Jack and Lyra stood at the observatory's edge, looking out over the world they had just saved. The agents had withdrawn, leaving them alone with a warning that this wasn't over.